today. I mentioned it earlier to our panelists, but I'll say it to all of you. We will not have a lot of time for question and answers. You're welcome to use the Q&A function to ask any questions. If we have time, we may ask them. Otherwise, we'll just share them with the panelists at a later time, and then share those with all of you who are on the call if they're appropriate to do so. And so please feel free to use that function. We'll keep an eye on it during the presentation. So today we really wanted to share space with nonprofits about reopening. So we wanted to hear directly from the City of Long Beach, from the Department of Health and Human Services and Economic Development Department, to see what resources and guidance is out there that our nonprofits need to hear, and also hear from some of our leaders who are already working on those plans to reopen and just share ideas. And we will most likely have more of these just to share how individuals are reopening. If you have resources, actual like things that you have been using to reopen, like PPE or access to anything like that, and you want to share that with the nonprofit community, please let us know, and we'll start a resource list of those items on our website. And so I just wanted to welcome everyone again today, and also introduce Griselda Suarez from the Arts Council for Long Beach. And Griselda has been a critical partner to TNP and to myself in trying to help support nonprofits in what's happening and how to respond to the things that are happening in the community, and also support reopening. And so Griselda's in some spaces where she's representing our nonprofits, and always in spaces representing arts and the rest of the community. And so I want to thank her before I introduce her for all of that support, and then welcome her to say some opening remarks before we get started.
Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. I also would like to share my thank yous and appreciation to the nonprofit partnership. Since March, we have been in constant communication in order to support our colleagues in the nonprofit sector and in the arts and culture sector, and for that I'm ever grateful. There is a lot of work going on in many different forms to reopen the city. And I have to say that in working with the task force for restarting Long Beach, the city is really listening to recommendations, including the recommendations that I have provided in any way, shape, or form, how the city could help. It is all being considered right now, nonprofits, arts and culture nonprofits as well. So I'm thankful for the city listening. And we gather today after several days of violence and compassion. And I'm sure we are all feeling a range of emotions. And we definitely have witnessed the force of humanity's ability to manifest both, even here in Long Beach at the protest that we saw on Saturday, which seems, or Sunday, I can't even keep track anymore, I apologize. And the Arts Council, as an Arts Council, we want to extend our condolences to the Floyd family and to all the other families nationally that are reliving the tragedy of losing someone through police violence. And at the Arts Council, we've been thinking a lot about this, and one of our values and one of our core to our mission is enlivening communities. And so we were definitely uplifted by the peaceful demonstrations on our streets, and saddened by how many of our neighborhoods and small businesses were vandalized. The violence we are seeing is a complex response to a horrible history of oppression. And yesterday, the street and storefront cleanup showed me something. That when we all channel our energy to an actionable purpose, so much becomes possible. And so as we move forward with our conversation today, I want us to think about that, how if we channel our energy and we reopen with more compassionate and inclusive, actionable purpose, we can really make a difference as a nonprofit sector here in Long Beach. And with that, I just want to say thank you for joining us today and taking that first step.
Thank you, Griselda. Thank you so much for sharing that. With that, we want to recognize the hard work in just the pandemic and reopening and all of the above that the city has done. And Kelly is probably one of the people who's working the hardest as the director of health, the Department of Health and Human Services. And so Kelly took some time out of her day today to be with us and share some guidance and updates with the nonprofits. And so I'm going to pass it off. I know Kelly also has limited time, so I want to pass it off to you, Kelly, and thank you for being here today.
Hi, good morning, everybody. And Griselda, thank you for your words. I was out there yesterday morning as well as part of the cleanup throughout the day. And it was just a powerful picture of what our community can do together. And, you know, it's been a roller coaster. The last 3 months as your health director and for our city, it's just been this incredible roller coaster of emotion for me as we're standing for the health of the people of our city from COVID and being able to protect people and their safety, but also knowing that each time that we had to that we were shutting down something, we were shutting down people's opportunity for income and other wellness. And when you look at health overall, we know it's the whole interaction of all the different pieces, and it's the interaction of income, and it's the interaction of mental health and substance use and support and relationship and all those things. And so, I shut down we'll shut down one piece, and then I would just like hold my heart for a while, and then we go through the next. And so I've been excited that we've been able to start to reopen in many ways to support an overall wellness, but also fearful that each step that we take brings back the opportunity for greater impact around COVID. So none of this has been an easy conversation. And I think I just want you all to know that we're doing everything we can, understanding the full picture of what wellness looks like for individuals and for community. And then with that, then with the protests over the weekend and just knowing the emotional impact that all of that had from the death last week, and then all of this, the ability to protest. And I will admit, I'm watching the protests, just cheering people on, and I go, please keep your face coverings on. And so it's like both of those things, going forward. So yeah, it's just been a lot over the last 3 months, and I want to thank all of you for your support throughout and understanding that who you are and what you bring to our community has so much power and impact for the whole community to move forward. And I'm looking forward to working with you to be able to open up further. I think in terms of reopening, so as you've heard, we've issued a couple new orders based on the state, and we've been allowed, we've met the criteria to be able to move a little more quickly than some of the other counties. We partnered with LA County moving forward on an attestation, but our data met the requirements on our own. And so we are tracking on those data and moving forward. But what that has allowed is for office buildings to open, and so it allows for all of your teams to be in office spaces where they exist. We encourage you heavily to continue the distance. I mean, the being able to use Zoom and others for your meetings wherever we can. And then there are protocols. If you get onto the COVID website, so the longbeach.gov/COVID-19, what you'll see is it's an Appendix A. And Appendix A is the list of what we would ask that you be able to complete. And it basically just gives like a set of things for which your office becomes safer in the space of distancing, sanitization, all those kind of things. And so once you're officially open, you need to have that filled out and like posted somewhere where people can see it when they come in. So that's the key piece, just to get your office spaces open. We're still not, there's gathering of any outside of the household, aside from for work, is still not permitted under the state or local order. So activities where you're out in community and bringing folks together still need to be done with technology for a while. And I don't know when that will open. It's in stage 3 of the state's order, and we are at the end of stage 2. But numbers are going up, and they're not spiking. It's not like we're seeing these like huge spikes that go like this, but we're just seeing this trend. as more and more people are out in community, and I'm paying a lot of attention to that, as is LA County. So we're gonna sit for a little bit and see how those data look. So I urge you to continue your connection. I keep saying it's not socially distancing, we're physically distancing, and we're socially connecting as much as possible, any way that we can that is safe for folks. So that's sort of where we are at the time, right now. If you are a nonprofit who is supporting people experiencing homelessness or nursing or those sorts of things, some PPE is available through the city. There is a site also on the COVID-19 site where you can you would be able to click and indicate if you would need some PPE. It's pretty limited through that group. We are getting ready to open another portal for businesses and other organizations who are opening that have very specific requirements. For instance, for restaurants, we're requiring face shields right now. I'm calling it their personal plexiglass, since most of the people who are eating at restaurants don't have a face covering on. There's no protection for those who are serving, and so we gave out about 2,500 face shields over the weekend, and there will be another location at the on the COVID website that as you are engaging in other work, that you would be able to sign up for some additional PPE if you think you need it moving forward. So I think those are the key pieces of where we are. I'm absolutely happy to answer any questions or cover topics that you want to cover.
Thank you, Kelly. That was really helpful. And we'll make sure when we send a follow-up to this to send any of those links that you mentioned. Also, there was one question that came in through the Q&A about any outlook on reopening children's programs or small summer classes.
Yeah. So so right now, anyone running an early child facility or a daycare, or I'm just going to call it childcare, is allowed to be open. And there is guidance on our local website and the state website for what that looks like. So that can open. The state guidance is going to be coming down for what they call summer camps. Should be coming very soon. And once that guidance comes out is when people are allowed to move forward with that within the stage. It looks very different than in the past. So drop-ins are not allowed. They're very much cohorted kids. So you bring kids in and we ask that you only have 10 in a group together and that those 10 remain together each day. And then they're not switching around and that you have the same instructors with those 10 and the instructors aren't going from one group to another. So the model of it looks different, but people can be opening. And I just, I ask that you look at the guidance at the state level coming down. But yeah, that's certainly in the month of, I think we'll be announcing in this month and soon that for older kids that can be open. Right now, the early childhood care is what is considered an essential service and can be for anybody. So anybody who's doing that work can moving forward.
Thank you. That was really helpful. Any of the panelists have any questions before we move to the next section?
There is one that's in the chat. Is there any guidance for adult day programs, such as adult daycare for people with dementia?
Those, there has not been specific guidance out, but I will need to check and determine if that falls under one of the essential services. And then we are doing a lot of work right now with older adult facilities as part of the city. You're hearing a lot of skilled nursing and other programs. So let me check into that. Who would I respond to?
You can let us know and then we will share that out with everyone.
All right, I'll see what I can find.
You can tell me, Kelly. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I can do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions I missed? Let's see. There was one other question, although it seems that it might have been covered in what you were just sharing. Will the guidelines that are being released have policies for overnight camps?
Overnight camps, I don't think will be allowed for the summer. I think it will, from what I'm hearing right now, of course I say that and then like the next day the state does something, but at this time, today, right now, at this moment, I don't believe that there's a plan for overnight camps, for the summer, but once again, I'm not sure where that will fall.
Thank you. And yes, we'll put that statement for all of today. We are talking about today and what we know today and what's happening today. And we know things change very quickly and rapidly. So, and then the last question before we'll move on, when will galleries be able to open and under what circumstances?
So galleries are part of stage 3. It's hard to, it's as I said, we're going to sit for a little bit and see where things are right now. The outdoor galleries are currently open. So if you have, if there's artwork that can be posted outside, even as it's, in other places or outside, you would be able to have people be able to, wander through following those protocols. Those have been listed. There is guidance for that. So that is possible. But at this point, I don't know where in stage 3 that will open.
Okay. Thank you so much. And then if anyone on the call today has additional questions, just put them in the Q&A and we'll send them over to Kelly and then we'll send the responses out after that. But Kelly, I want to thank you for your time today and for all the work that you're doing for everyone. And we'll keep sending our nonprofit questions your way. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. And so next I'm going to invite Eric Romero. He's a project manager for Long Beach Economic Development Department. And the Economic Development Department has been supporting businesses, nonprofits, and the community in what everyone's been experiencing. And so Eric, the floor is yours to share some of those resources with all of us.
Great, and I do have a presentation, so I'm just going to load that up right now so I can go through that information. And I will share these slides with Michelle and the team so that they can send it out to you all after this webinar.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As Michelle mentioned, I'm Eric Romero. I'm a project manager in the City of Long Beach Economic Development Department. And I want to start by thanking Michelle and her team for their leadership in organizing this webinar, and also for all of you that are on this call that really are leaders in our community and are helping to rebuild and bring our community, move our community forward and help to fill the gaps that we see that we as government cannot provide. So thank you so much for everything that you do every single day. Today, I'll be talking about a few resources that are available to businesses and nonprofits. And then we'll share some links as well. And if there's time for Q&A, I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can answer, and anything that I can't answer in the moment, I will follow up as quickly as possible. So I'll get started. So for me, this is the first time that I'm speaking with many of you here on this call. And so I thought I'd start with just a quick overview of what the team that I'm on does here in the City of Long Beach. So again, we're in the Economic Development Department. We have a few different bureaus or teams here in our department. And the team that I'm on specifically is called the Business Development Bureau. We generally support for-profit businesses, but we do provide some support to nonprofits as well, as we know that you all are economic drivers here in the city and you employ lots of people. And so we understand there's a need to support you all more proactively, especially now and moving forward. But here's just a quick overview of what we do. We do some small business lending, and I'll talk about one program that we've deployed in response to COVID-19 later today. We also help with business navigation. So if a business owner is, for example, starting a new business and opening up a brick and mortar, we help you navigate that permitting and business licensing process. We don't regulate it ourselves. We just help facilitate it and make it a smoother process. As a part of the business navigation services, we also direct people to important resources that are available that can help with business planning or financial planning or digital marketing and communications and getting your business online. And I believe some of these resources are also available for nonprofits as well. We also focus on business attraction, so bringing new businesses to the city, but also business retention, which is especially important right now to ensure that the businesses that have been around and contributing to our city are able to not only stabilize, but also scale as we start to recover and transition to hopefully a more prosperous future here in the city. We also oversee a lot of programs focused on business corridor revitalizations through the Business Improvement Districts program. And I'm happy to see Porter, that is a panelist today, who is a board member for the 4th Street Business Improvement District. And we really thank them for their leadership during this difficult time. We do a lot of work around data collection and marketing. We have something called the Economic Insights Dashboard that's available on our website right now that has a lot of demographic information, economic information, quality of life data that I'm sure would be helpful for you all. So I'll make sure to share a link to that in the chat once I'm done speaking. And we also oversee our department's communication and marketing efforts. So email blast, our social media handles, and the like. Of course, there are a lot of special projects that come with being an employee of the city, but this is generally what we do, and is just a quick overview so that you all can become more familiar with our services here in the city of Long Beach. So in response to COVID-19, we realized we need to be a lot more available than we have been in the past. So we quickly responded by putting together a business hotline, which of course is available to nonprofit organizations as well. And the call center is staffed Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., but there are moments when there are new health orders that are released or other important information that's released that we do operate the call center on the weekends. This is the quickest and easiest way to get a hold of someone so that you can get answers to your questions. If they can't answer the question on the spot, they will send it to someone like myself or a colleague of mine, and we will try to get back to you within 24 hours. The phone number is 562-570-4249, so they can help answer questions about some of the programs I'll be talking about today. Whenever there's a new health order that is released, they can answer questions about the types of activities that are allowed and aren't allowed, and can point you to the different protocols that businesses that are allowed to open up will need to adhere to in order to operate a safe environment for themselves, for their customers, and for their employees as well. So if you have a question and need to get a hold of someone, please call this business hotline as soon as possible. Similarly, we've launched a website for businesses and workers, but also some resources that support nonprofits. And that website is longbeach.gov/4biz, that's 4biz. And this, again, centralizes a variety of resources that are available in the city. So again, loan programs, information on unemployment insurance, the city's health orders, information on the temporary ban on evictions for both residential and commercial renters that has been expanded, and I can speak to that a little more later as well. And for those of you that have access to the internet and access to a computer, you can access this information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We do know that there is a digital divide in the city, so we know that this information isn't available to anyone, but hopefully some of you can access this resources whenever you need to access them. Thanks to the leadership of the City Council, we quickly moved to put in place an emergency microloan program to help with cash flow during this difficult time. We know for many businesses, they are closed and not receiving any revenue. And we know for many nonprofits, the funding has changed, and maybe some of the larger foundations and donors aren't making as many donations or providing that funding that's critical to support your operations during this time. So this new program, which we still will have funding for and are looking to secure more funding for, supports small businesses and 501c3 nonprofit organizations with 5 employees or less. The loan amounts range from $2,500 to $10,000. Most requests that we're getting are for that $10,000 amount, and we're funding most of the loans at that $10,000 amount. We're trying to provide some additional relief. Cash flow is a big issue right now. So the first loan payment, if you do receive this loan, isn't due until January 2021. And because we are a city and we are the lender, we are looking to work with any business or nonprofit that cannot meet this payment deadline on time. We will work with you. The interest rate for this one is a fixed interest rate, so it will not change over the term of the loan. And that interest rate is 2.44%. Unlike other traditional loan programs, there is no personal guarantee that's required, so you won't have to pledge any assets or collateral in case you cannot pay back this loan. And the loan proceeds can be used on a variety of different needs. So anything from payroll to rent, to utilities, to materials and supplies that you might need, or personal protective equipment, which I know you will need to get access to in order to open up safely as you start to bring back your staff to your work locations and offices. We are working closely with a great local organization called the Small Business Development Center to administer this program. And we are asking that anyone that's interested in this loan program to schedule an appointment with the Small Business Development Center. They have a variety of business consultants that can speak multiple languages that can provide hands-on technical assistance with filling out this application. So please, if you're interested, give us a call on the business hotline, or I will also share my email and the phone number after. This is a great program. Just to give you an idea of some of the documents that will be required for this program, I listed a few here. This isn't a comprehensive list, but if you call us, we can share that comprehensive list. But Some things you'll need are your financial statements, such as a profit and loss statement, a balance sheet statement, your latest tax returns that you have on file. I think the tax reporting process is different for nonprofits, and I'm not super familiar with that, but the latest ones that you have on file would be helpful. A summary of your debt schedule, so existing debts that you have, the original loan amount or debt amount that you took out, how much those monthly payments are, and when that debt will essentially go away is something that we'll ask for. A copy of your business license, and then a use of funds statement. So if you are interested in this loan program, you need to start to think through how you would utilize these loan proceeds, and we'll ask for that information. And of course, if you have any questions, we can help answer those questions. Of course, we know that people prefer grants compared to loans, especially right now where there's a lot of insecurity with regard to the cash flow and how it is now, but also how it will be in the future. But we wanted to give you an idea of what these monthly payments look like, hopefully to get people to be a little more open to this loan program. But we provide either 5 or 7 year terms, and I listed here just a few options in terms of the monthly payment, which will be based on your total loan amount and the term. So the payments can range from anywhere from $64 a month to about $177 a month. And again, the first payment won't be due until January 2021. Now, I know many of you have heard about these federal programs and many of you have taken advantage of them. And for those of you that have not, I just wanted to talk briefly about 2 of them. The first one is the Paycheck Protection Program, which there's still funding available for. So if you haven't applied for this loan program and you need some support for rent, utilities, or for payroll, consider applying for this loan program that has been made available by the U.S. Small Business Administration. This particular program focuses on keeping employees on payroll. So the loan proceeds can be used for payroll, rent, utilities, and mortgage interests that you may have. And ultimately, the loan amounts will be determined by 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, and the cost will be capped at $100,000 per employee. What a lot of folks like about this program is that there's a loan forgiveness option. So if you do keep employees on payroll for 8 weeks, and if at least 75% of the money is spent on eligible uses, so 75% needs to be spent on payroll and the rest on eligible uses, you can get up to the entire loan amount forgiven. And if for some reason the entire loan amount isn't forgiven, whatever is still left over, you have to pay back in 2 years, and the interest rate will be 1%. This particular program is administered by lending institutions. So if you are interested, I encourage you to contact your bank to see if they are still participating in this program. If they are not, and you are interested in this program, please call our business hotline. We have what we call a capital access coordinator that's helping to build relationships with lenders, both traditional ones like banks, but also non-traditional mission-based lenders that are still participating in this program, and we can help make those connections. Now, I know what people haven't liked about the Paycheck Protection Program is some of the requirements in terms of the forgiveness, and people feel like there's strict requirements and that it's pretty confusing. And we've actually spoken with a few businesses that have received this loan program, but actually haven't spent any of the funds because they're a little confused about the reporting requirements to get that forgiveness. So we wanted to let you know that the House of Representatives recently passed a measure that would make some changes to this program, and it's going to go to the Senate next. But they're looking at expanding the period which money must be used from 8 weeks to 24 weeks to provide some additional flexibility there. And they're looking to ease the requirements of having that 75% go towards payroll so that you can get the loan forgiven, and reducing that to 60% to, again, provide some additional flexibility there. We don't know, it looks like there's support in the US Senate for these changes, but we're not sure if they're gonna happen yet. As soon as they do happen, we can let the nonprofit partnership team know so that we can make this information available to you all. If you are an existing PPP borrower and you have questions about loan forgiveness, we encourage you to speak with your lending institution as soon as possible. The SBA did put out their loan forgiveness application, but each lender will approach it differently based on how they digest the information and guidelines that are provided by the Small Business Administration. And we also encourage you to participate on webinars and calls. The Small Business Development Center, I believe, has 3 back-to-back webinars starting today over the next few days, all focused on PPP. They'll provide a presentation, but then also leave extensive time for Q&A So please contact them and sign up for their webinar if you're interested in participating in it. And I'll provide a link to that again in the chat function here. Another program that came out of the federal government was this economic injury disaster loan. We do want to let you know that this loan application or loan program is currently open to agricultural businesses only. So if you aren't already in the queue, you cannot apply for this unless you're an agricultural based business. But if you have applied and you have not heard back, please contact us. We have some connections to the Small Business Administration LA Regional Office, so we can help to see what the status of your application is and help get any answers to the questions that you might have. And the information for this program is available here on the screen, but I won't go through all the details because if you haven't applied already, you cannot apply unless you're an agricultural-based business. As Kelly mentioned, we have a variety of resources available for reopening. So I've included a few links here to the latest health order. Also, there are links to the physical distancing protocols and the office worksite protocols. And these are really just checklists that you will have to make available to your employees and post somewhere in your office. And really, the city does not want to leave anyone guessing, so they're pretty comprehensive. And if you have any questions about these health orders, you can call Kelly or her team, but you can also call the business hotline. We're helping to provide answers to the questions. And we know there is some gray area, but sometimes if there is gray area and you provide us those questions, we can then provide that to the health department and the city attorney's office so that they can make amendments to these health orders to clarify any information that isn't quite clear when you first interpret this information. There also is a link here to print yourself posters, and I have an example of it here on our screen. The city designed a variety of posters, and I believe there are some for office-based businesses or nonprofit organizations. So please take a look at the different posters that are available and print them out and post them, and also share them with any folks that aren't on today's call. So that's just a brief overview of some of the resources that are available here in the city of Long Beach. We did want to let you know that we're currently looking for new funding to either provide loan programs or grant funding, grants to both businesses, for-profit and nonprofit businesses to help with procuring personal protective equipment, because we know that you're financially burdened right now, and bringing your employees back and having to procure this PPE is going to be tough. So as new information becomes available, I will make sure to share it with the nonprofit partnership team so that you can access this information in real time. And my email is listed here on the screen. Please do not hesitate to reach out with any questions, comments, or recommendations. We're here to serve you and are working around the clock to ensure that you are supported. And of course, if you have any ideas of things that we should be considering, don't hesitate to share that with us. And with that, I'll pass it back to Michelle, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, Eric, and we'll follow up with you on that PPE information. But I appreciate that. There were a few questions. For the sake of time, we'll send those to you to answer, and then we'll share that again, like the questions that have been submitted even through TNP. We have some via email already, so we'll send those your way, and then we'll follow up with everybody. But I just want to thank you for your time today. Thanks a lot, and all your hard work. Okay, I'm going to pass it off. We're going to open up our next section. We have all of these wonderful panelists here today to share what's happening from their perspective. And I want to introduce first Griselda to talk about why we have asked all these nonprofits to be here today.
Yes, we saw things moving quite quickly this past week on reopening, and through many of the conversations, I felt, and as did Michelle, that the nonprofits were not getting the opportunity to share resources and to talk about reopening and how it impacts our work. And so we gathered a group of panelists that have a range of services. And obviously, as nonprofits, we all deal with the public. And here we wanted to provide an opening into how our colleagues are dealing with volunteers, are dealing with social services, where anyone can just open the door and walk in and ask for service, with any nonprofit work that deals with technical work and training, and also the leisure experience, right? The arts and culture experience. So with that, we built this panel, and we're really excited to provide their knowledge to you today. And we will be starting with Sean Devereaux, at the Aquarium of the Pacific. He is the Director of Volunteer Engagement. His nonprofit journey actually began at the Aquarium in 1998 and has been there in a range of positions as a volunteer. Whereas when he first got there to heading up the Division of Volunteer Engagement. He also has served on many national organizations for volunteering, including the Association of Zoos and Aquariums and the Annual Conference Planning Committee, where he helped develop the Volunteer Management Professional Development track. So Sean is definitely our volunteer extraordinaire expert, and we're excited to have him here today. He's also part of the Arts Council Board and other and volunteers with other nonprofits in Long Beach. So Sean, thank you for joining us and for saying yes to our panel today, and I will leave it your way.
Thank you so much, Griselda. I really appreciate that warm welcome. It is a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the accommodation to be able to have this time to speak with you now, because I have to run off to another Zoom meeting in not too many minutes. It's a very busy week indeed. But before we talk about reopening the aquarium, I want to give you a little picture of what's transpired over the last several weeks. And the story will ring true, I think, and feel similar to many of you. We closed to the public on March 14th. At that time, our institution experienced a significant number of furloughs. We reduced hours for many of our remaining staff, and many salary reductions were put into place at that time. Just about 2 weeks ago, we had to do some further cuts, and many of the furloughs turned into a permanent reduction in force at the aquarium. We did have to go through some rounds of layoffs. About 20% of our existing staff have been laid off. And we continue to have hour reductions for our remaining staff and salary reductions in place as well. But we are currently, against that backdrop of significant reduction in our staff time and force, getting ready to reopen any day now. And in fact, have put into place a process to be ready to reopen by this weekend if the coast is clear. I doubt that we will be able to open this weekend, but we are having all of our processes in place so that we can be nimble and responsive and be able to meet the needs of our community and to start getting a little revenue at the aquarium as well, to hopefully not have to do any further reductions. At the time of our closure, we had 1,200 active volunteers. About 100 of those volunteers were teen or college level interns in various programs, and they had just started their spring term with us at the time of our closure. We immediately had to pivot to provide an engaging opportunity for all of those teens and young people in those internship programs so that they could have a robust, albeit a very different experience than they were anticipating when they were selected for that participation. We had 100% cessation at that time of our on-site volunteer service production, 100% cessation. All of our active volunteers were put immediately on furlough. And at that time, we also had to do 100% pivot to provide engaging opportunities to maintain participation in some capacity for those volunteers who were no longer able to come on site to provide some service. So typically in the month of May, we would have received about 12,000 hours of service from our volunteers on site at the building. I'm really delighted to report that we did have about 2,000 hours of service provided by our volunteers in that same period for the month of May in entirely remote and digital experiences, which is pretty remarkable considering how rapidly we had to completely change course and maintain some engagement. In mid-April, I was able to provide an opportunity for 13 of our behind-the-scenes volunteers to return to service in animal care and diving capacities. Leading up until that time, we had eliminated all volunteer participation in all capacities at the aquarium, and we really rely heavily on those volunteers to provide daily animal care and dive operations for our institution in order to maintain the livelihood and the health of our live animal collection. Our paid staff were growing fatigued and really needed a little bit of additional help, and welcomed back those 13 volunteers with open arms, and we put them to work quite rapidly. It did take quite a bit of time to negotiate this reentry for those volunteers. At that time, we did not have all of our policies and procedures hammered down. We were all learning at the same time. And in fact, we used that opportunity to introduce a very small cohort of volunteers in those behind the scenes capacities to do an awful lot of learning. How are more people using the space? Can we maintain physical distancing when we have additional bodies in the office spaces and in the food preparation room and behind the scenes with all of the exhibits? How many divers can we have on a team now? Is there space in the dive locker for them to change and to maintain that physical distancing? How are we dealing with face masks? When the masks get wet, they are no longer functional. We have to have a constant supply of these things. And for a lot of these behind the scenes jobs, they are very wet and very dirty. And these are all kinds of complications that we were navigating. Having that small crew, those 13 volunteers participating with our paid staff in those behind the scenes capacity, provided unbelievable learning opportunities for us institutionally and have helped us to develop a plan of action moving forward to try to re-engage all of our 1,000+ volunteers who are currently ready to come back into service in some kind of capacity. The opening for us now is imminent. I mentioned that we are putting all systems in place in order to allow us to reopen in some capacity by this weekend at the earliest. But we are also ready and poised to delay that for as long as we need to. It's good to know, though, that we will be ready to go when we are asked to do so. Now, I think that it's kind of important to mention a little bit of demographics about our volunteers. As Griselda mentioned, I am very affiliated with the Association of Zoos and Aquarium membership organization. This is our national accrediting agency for all zoos and aquariums in the country and abroad. And they maintain very high standards of accreditation in order to claim membership for this organization. Many of my colleagues, directors of volunteer engagement at other zoos and aquariums, have not been able to utilize volunteer staff for their reopening purposes, and I think that is a very gigantic missed opportunity here. There are several zoos and aquariums that have reopened across the country, and there is only one zoo in Canada that I am aware of that has actually relied on their volunteers to help them with their reopening procedure. The Aquarium of the Pacific is going to rely on our volunteers very heavily in order to allow us to reopen to any kind of capacity. And I think that many of my colleagues as well have done some surveying of volunteers to try to gauge their interest to return to service, given all of the uncertainty that lives in the world right now. We have no idea who's taking care of whom at home. We don't know who has childcare that they can't accommodate. We have no idea, everyone is dealing with so much now. Are volunteers really going to want to come back into service? By and large, in the zoo and aquarium industry, volunteers are reluctant to return, but our story is entirely different at the Aquarium of the Pacific. And I think that has a lot to do with our philosophy of including our volunteers in the all-staff experience. We believe that everyone who comes to serve the mission of the Aquarium of the Pacific is a staff member, whether they receive a paycheck or they receive just the warm, fuzzy feelings of doing something good for their community. Everyone is supported, everyone is relied on, and everyone has the same responsibilities to deliver on that mission at the same capacity, regardless of those other factors. So we have an all-staff philosophy, and we have an all-staff, all-hands-on-deck call now in order to bring everyone back who has been furloughed and laying idle into service. The median age of our volunteer program is 36. 20% of our volunteers are aged 60+. Yesterday, I sent out some communication regarding the all-hands-on-deck call to service that we will be that has launched. And I have received an overwhelming response from our volunteers who are eager and interested and ready to get the aquarium back off its feet again. And it's humbling and overwhelming, and I couldn't be more appreciative. We will be focusing first in this all hands on deck call on populating our guest-facing volunteers, and then later rebuilding some of our more specific behind-the-scenes opportunities. There are many, many complications for our dive operations, considering that COVID-19 is a respiratory infection. There's much uncertainty of whether of how COVID impacts a person's ability to dive. So that is one program that we will not be able to relaunch with any kind of great capacity in the near future. And similarly, because of our reduction in force, I've had to eliminate all teen programming and all internships for the immediate future, which breaks my heart. I think that this is a demographic that needs all of the opportunities that we can provide them now, and I am eager to be able to reopen those functions as soon as possible. All staff are going to be returning to an entirely different experience at the aquarium. We have implemented procedures to handle a temperature screening and a health check disclosure prior to entry for every single shift. Masks will be required of all staff and guests. We are following to the letter of the law all of the policies and procedures that are being put into place by our city leadership. And the biggest wild card factor here is that we have a lot of training to do and we can't assemble any groups. So that's what I'm trying to figure out over these next couple of days as we get ready to be able to reopen, and stand by for when that date gets published. Please come and visit us. We absolutely need your support again. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Sean. I know you have to run, so I want to thank you for your time and sharing all of that great information. If you have questions for Sean, please let us know and we'll share those with him. But we appreciate the work that you're doing. And, you know, on this call, Christina from TNP is a virtual meeting extraordinaire. So if you want anyone to ask questions to, she's open to that for everyone on the call. But I just want to thank you again. So have a great rest of your day. And so next, we're going to introduce our next speaker. Next, I want to bring on Marisa Semense. She is the new Executive Director of the Long Beach Community Action Partnership. And she's been with the Community Action Partnership for quite a few years and just became the Executive Director recently, and now is leading the organization through this pandemic and everything else that's happening in our community. She's also been a longtime board member of Children Today, so she's going to share some insights on what they're doing at Long Beach Community Action Partnership. I may have froze a little bit there, but you know what I mean. And here you go, Marisa. I'm introducing you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Griselda, for moderating this really wonderful panel. I'm very honored to be a part of it. I'm hoping everyone can hear me okay. Just nod if you can. Okay, perfect. I first wanted, thank you all. I first wanted to really talk about what happened for us when the Safer at Home order went into place. Being a community action agency, we are considered an essential service, but one of the things that really struck us on March 13th, if you recall, the school district had to close its doors. We were immediately impacted by that effect because we have 3 after-school programs. And so unfortunately, within a day's notice, we had to furlough about 16 of our staff. And so that put us in almost, high alert immediately. The following week on March 20th is when the Safer at Home order came into place. And we as an organization actually did decide to close temporarily and furlough our staff for about a month. That decision was a really difficult decision. It was a united decision with the management team here. And in hindsight, I'm actually really thankful that we were able to take that time. The first reason I'm thankful is because that time really allowed our staff to isolate themselves and to take care of themselves and their families in the way that they thought was best for them. Between the 13th and the 20th, and seeing the customers that we see on a regular basis for our energy program actually did cause a lot of fear for our staff because people were coming in sick and they were, not they were behaving exactly the way they normally behave. And that wasn't the hard part. The hard part was this unknown of this potential pandemic that was happening and not a lot of information. And we certainly, I don't think as an agency, were as prepared as we could have been, though I'm not sure if anybody really was, because this is, again, a pretty unprecedented experience. But I really felt the staff needed a breathing point. I felt like the staff needed some time to really figure out how to make sure that they stay safe with their families and with their own communities. And so when we shut down, we had every intention of reopening on April 20th, which was a month later. That actually did give us enough time to really plan and prepare for the implementation of staff returning. We were very, very thankful that Long Beach put the moratorium out for utility assistance, because with people not receiving shutoff notices, again, for our energy program, that 100% alleviated the challenge of emergency services. Our weatherization program, which provides basic assistance, for the weatherization program, we were able to still work with our subcontractors and handle any emergencies of that nature. But again, because that was handled through our subcontractors, the staff really were able to take a breather. When we had the staff return on the 20th, we actually had them return in staggered schedules. So half of the staff worked on a Monday, Wednesday schedule. The remaining staff worked on a Tuesday, Thursday. Now, for us, we actually have multiple locations. We have a Long Beach location, which is our main office, a Lakewood location, which is our utility assistance office, and a Santa Fe Springs location for our weatherization services. And so thankfully, having 3 separate buildings for the 60 or so staff that we have, it actually made the staggered schedules work pretty effectively, because each office really didn't have more than 10 people in at one time. And that allowed us to kind of really, once staff returned on the 20th, we looked at what our services look like, what programs we are going to continue to operate, what programs that we might need to put on pause. And it also allowed us to look at what avenues that we could get into, how to be innovative, how to really address the needs of what was happening in the community. Being a community action agency, I feel very fortunate that we have that luxury of being able to reassess the funds that we receive and shift them in a way that makes the most sense for the community. So although we did have our staff return, we did maintain some limited access to the public. So for those of you who are not familiar with LBCAP, we do have 4 primary services. We have a VITA program, which is a volunteer income tax assistance program, our energy services, which pays utility bills as well as basic weatherization, our youth services, the after-school programs, as I mentioned earlier, as well as a teen program called LAMP, Leadership Academy mentoring program that we offer here on site at our office, as well as PadNet, which is a public access channel for the city of Long Beach. So when we returned, we primarily only operated the PadNet program. We only operated the VITA program and the utility assistance program of our energy department. For VITA, we continued to have appointments. The appointments were separated out. We had the way that we actually structured that system is we had people drop off, have a brief one-on-one, and then the following week they were going to come and pick up the taxes that were completed for them. For our energy program, utility assistance, we allowed people to drop off their applications, mail in their applications, and then staff was able to process those payments that needed to go out as we started receiving the applications again. Unfortunately, our PadNet program and our youth program remained closed. So I'm very happy to transition into June, because June 1st, actually as of yesterday, we were able to have all of our staff return and they all returned. It was actually really funny because everyone returned and everyone was I think, with still some mixed emotions, and especially trying to manage the additional challenges and emotions that occurred over the weekend. It was, for the most part, the feedback I received from my staff was that getting back to some kind of normalcy was really important for them. I feel, again, very fortunate because we are a community action agency and we do provide services to those affected, low-income families and those affected by COVID. I think having purpose to come back was really meaningful for the staff as well. One of the things that we've done, though, is we did not open additionally to the public immediately. Because many of our staff are coming back from the staggered schedule, most of our staff haven't even seen each other for, since the 20th of March, if they were on the alternate schedules. So we have given time for our staff to really sit down, talk with each other, look up best practices, and try to figure out the best way and the healthiest and safest way for us to reopen. I do anticipate probably mid-month we'll be able to open more fully to the public. Certainly, as Sean was talking about, it's going to look different than before the pandemic, but that's okay. And with this opportunity for the staff to kind of have buy-in and have say in what it's going to look like for them to serve the public, I think that's going to help us pretty tremendously. Shifting to what it actually looked like to reopen, one of the things, actually, I was really happy to hear Kelly talk earlier, because the Appendix A specifically, was really, really helpful for us to just ensure that we had all the I's dotted and the T's crossed to make sure that we were following appropriately what we needed to do. There were things that were listed on the appendix that, I personally hadn't even considered or thought of. And so even though not everything on there is applicable to us, it really allowed for us to talk through additional measures and safety concerns. And so that is one of the resources I think that was really valuable for us. Additionally, because we are, again, a community action agency, we have a national association and we have a state association, and we reached out pretty tremendously to see what best practices other agencies are using. So that's pretty much where we were at with the reopening. Again, I do think that we're going to reopen mid-month. But I wanted to talk about, one of the things that Michelle had asked to talk about was how we're being innovative and if we are working with new partners. And we really, probably within the first week of having to shut down, the management team kind of sat and looked at our funds, looked at our programs that we didn't anticipate being able to operate, and we restructured our funding to address the food security issues that are happening in Long Beach. We actually created a program called CERRA, it's CERRA, and that stands for Community Economic Relief and Reinvestment Alliance. And through that program, we are partnering with other nonprofits in the area to exactly do that, to address the food security. So we put on a large food distribution event with Rex Richardson's office on this past Saturday, which turned out to be a pretty amazing event. We were able to distribute over 1,100 food packages. In addition to that, we are offering grocery vouchers. And one of the things that we've always said at our agency is we can't do everything for everybody, and we can't be everything for everybody. So partnership and collaboration is key. So with the food vouchers, we have partnered with 5 other nonprofits in the community. Century Villages of Cabrillo, United Cambodian Community, Children Today, Central Cha, and the Heart of Ida. And we have been able to give them 200 grocery vouchers, which are basically gift cards to grocery stores. And in addition to that, they've been able to actually distribute them to the families that they serve. And so because our teen program, unfortunately, is again, much like the Aquarium, is in severe question whether we'll be able to operate this summer, we have been able to reach out to those families, the teens that we work with, and have started to offer them the grocery vouchers and other types of emergency assistance that we are looking into. It is our hope that we are going to be able to move into a rental assistance program. We are fortunate to be written into one of the CARES Act's funds, so we anticipate receiving an allocation most likely within the next month and a half to increase those services and look specifically at addressing the impact that the community has faced as a result of COVID. So that's where we're at. I feel very, very fortunate to have the partnerships that we have. We are looking to engage additional community partners. We know that we can't serve everybody, and we want to reach those organizations who absolutely have an expertise within a vulnerable population that as with everybody, can use the assistance. So if any of those nonprofits are out there, please feel free to reach out to me and see if there's ways that we can collaborate in future endeavors. I think that's my time.
Thank you, Marisa. And there's been some love shared and questions in the chat. So now that you're relieved of speaking, you can scroll through those and see. Thank you so much for sharing, and especially at the end, highlighting that collaboration. That's why we are holding events like this, and that is why we're going to continue to do so, because working together is only going to help the community, and we're stronger together. So thank you again for sharing, and check out the chat. And next, I want to introduce Porter Gilberg, Executive Director of the LGBTQ Center in Long Beach. Hi, Porter. Porter has been there since 2007, first as a volunteer and the Executive Director since 2014. I only have a few bio points, Porter, but Porter is an amazing advocate in the city and county and beyond, and we are happy to have you here today to share some insights on what you've been doing and what your plans are for reopening. So with that, Porter, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Really excited to be here with everyone. We, like LBCAP, are an essential service provider in the city of Long Beach, so we did not have to close our building to the public, but we chose to do so temporarily, and then got the majority of our services online. So we are obviously an organization focused on supporting folks who identify along the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and questioning spectrum. We provide health, mental health, and social support services, and particularly provide services to folks who are most on the margins and have risk for negative life outcomes. So survivors of violence, intimate partner violence, HIV and STI exposure, homelessness, food and housing insecurity. So we are serving an incredibly at-risk population. To me, when I think about my organization and think about reopening, the best answer I can give is based on the data that the city is providing, including data that is not being provided and not being updated in a timely fashion, based on information from the state, and based on the lack of understanding that we have about COVID infection for the LGBTQ community. We do not have plans to reopen our building to the public at this time. We have relaunched drive up and walk up HIV testing. We began offering that last week, and we do have a phased plan to reopen for STI testing as well. But one of the challenges that we have had as an organization in thinking through what reopening might look like is that we have no data that indicates how disproportionately impacted LGBTQ people are by the COVID epidemic. We know that our community is disproportionately represented in service and hospitality sectors. We know that our community faces greater prevalence of negative health outcomes. And when I asked the Department of Health and Human Services to begin asking about sexual orientation and gender identity in COVID testing, hospitalizations, recovery, and mortality, I did not receive a response from the director of the Department of Health and Human Services, and the director of the Office of Equity was unsuccessful in getting our city health department to begin collecting that data. So the state will be addressing that through legislative means. That is a long-winded explanation to say I do not know if it is safe to reopen. And for me, as an executive director who runs an organization invested in the health and well-being of a particular community, to do the best that I can to protect that health, I will not be reopening our building until I know it is safe to do so. Along with that, you know, we have obviously taken measures to protect our financial health, and it is also disappointing that there are no specific programs or support systems for nonprofits in this city. As an LGBTQ community, we are used to, you know, kind of doing things on our own and figuring out ways to figure it out. So we are lucky that we did receive a PPP loan and we are working towards forgiveness. We are fortunate that we have a ton of community support out there to invest in our work, to allow us to enhance services for our community like grocery and essential item delivery, like direct financial relief. There have been a number of foundations, including foundation representatives I know are on this call today, who have made direct investments in our work to support the community. But it does feel like we are really in a place where we must rely on other nonprofit organizations, and in particular other LGBTQ organizations across the country to guide us towards the best path for our community, whether or not that's reopening, because we are not getting the support we need at the government level. For me, this weekend was very telling. As we have gone through the COVID epidemic for the last 3 months, I have seen more effort to repair broken windows than broken systems in the last 24 hours. So again, my job as an executive director and my job as a representative of a community that is disproportionately impacted by health epidemics and by violence in our community, I'm going to continue to do the best that I can by reopening when I know that it is safe. So thank you for your time, and I am also available to answer any questions that folks might have.
Thank you, Porter. And there wasn't anything in the Q&A, but we'll check through the chat too. But thank you for that perspective. And I think that the point you make is huge in that data is so important to opening up. It's important to the state. It's important to the city, and it's important to our individual organizations. And I think even a question earlier around youth programming and that opening up, there's also that kind of data that would be helpful as we're making these decisions. So thank you for calling that out and continuing the advocacy you're doing. I appreciate that. Griselda, I'm gonna invite you to introduce our next speaker.
Absolutely. Next on our panel, we have Solimar Salas. She is the Vice President of Museum Content and Programming at the Museum of Latin American Art here in Long Beach. She has over 20 years experience in museum work. And Solimar joined the Long Beach family probably, I think, 2 years ago, almost 2 years, yes, this summer. And so she has developed in her experience bilingual content and interpretive programming, education technology, and even incorporating all of that into web content management. The Museum of Latin American Art most recently worked with the Arts Council on providing a short virtual tour because the COVID-19 pandemic hit right when one of their exhibitions was opening. And so the museum has been pivoting since the stay-at-home order was issued. So with that, I welcome Solimar to share with us how the museum is looking towards reopening. Thank you, Solimar.
Thank you, Griselda, for the invitation, and thank you for the nonprofit partnership, who has been doing a fantastic job in keeping everybody just educated and making a lot of these webinars available for all of us. I've also taken part of that, so I appreciate that. So on behalf of the Museum of Latin American Art, MOLA closed to the public March 16, but we kept working remotely. So we implemented the telecommuting policy agreement that we didn't have in place before then. So a lot of policies needed to be created to adapt to a new reality. While we kept working remotely between March and April, we also had to restructure our budget because of the limited revenue that was coming in. So in line with what other colleagues have said, it's been a little bit rough. We did receive the PPP loan, so we were able to bring some of our employees back, and we've been restructuring how they're working while we plan to reopen. Like it was mentioned, we're an indoor gallery space, so we're looking at opening up in stage 3. Definitely looking at safety procedures and measures for staff as well as visitors. While we have been closed, we strengthened our online presence and understood that we had to share content it would change the way we shared content permanently. So not just on the physical gallery offerings, but also online. And we started discussing from early on what it would mean to open up to the visitors as well as to the employees. So as we are looking at this next stage and we're preparing, we hope to be able to open in July, depending on when stage 3 is implemented. We're definitely keeping up to date with all the security protocols and measures as indicated by the City of Long Beach and the County of LA. So what we want to do is be ready to open up as soon as we safely can for the visitors. And for that, we've taken a few precautions. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And I also do want to mention some of the partnerships that we have looked at while we've been not open to the public, which has been really great to see how everybody's pulling together to reinvent themselves. So in terms of the facilities, we're looking at providing PPE for our employees. We are requesting that the visitors all come with face coverings, so that will be a requirement for us. We will provide PPE for the employees, including face masks and disposable latex gloves as it applies. As we've seen, all indications and directions have been constantly evolving as we get to know more about how COVID-19 spreads. We are also implementing touchless equipment for employees and visitors. And for this, we have received some grants that help in the implementation of security measures as a result of COVID-19. So we have had to dig from our budget, as well as we have received some grants to implement some of these changes. We're also going to be implementing a lot more signage outside the building as well as inside the building to make sure that we keep to that physical distancing that we need to implement for our visitors as well as our employees. We're making sure that it's clear, that it's visible signage. We're going more with iconic symbols instead of text and text and text, so that it's easily recognizable. And we're also going to be providing at least basic signage in English and Spanish. And we're looking at other languages that we can implement as well to respond to our immediate community. So these are one of the challenges that we're facing is that some of the elements in our building are historic. So we have wooden floors in the galleries that cannot, that we cannot use decals on, so we can't do stickers. So we're looking at rubber floor mats to act as signage within the galleries of the best viewing spots, but also where it will be safe, keeping the physical distancing from the visitors that we receive. So those are also things that we're looking at in the galleries. In terms of protocols and practices for cleaning, we're implementing even more strict cleaning procedures. So every hour on the hour, every half hour, depending on the location within the building. Our facilities and maintenance staff is making sure that it's disinfecting any tactile surface. One of the other strategies that we are going to be implementing is that all touch-based interactives are going to be removed from the galleries, given that that is a possible source of spread. So that is also impacting the way we communicate and the way we engage visitors in the galleries, which is where online resources come in play. We're also going to be implementing a fogger system within the building that will also be fumigating frequently the areas, so that we make sure that if anything that's airborne can be eliminated in a frequent basis. So we're also thinking of that. We're also have taken a look at our air conditioning systems, so that we're also aware of changing filters often, and just ensuring the protection of the visitors and staff as well. And we're also implementing a touchless soap dispensers, hand washers, and paper towel dispensers. In terms of the staff, we've also taken away the break room. We won't have any break room anymore. So we're looking at alternatives for how to provide those spaces for our staff to take a break when they need one, since one of the things we need to also be aware of is that wellness factor within the team. Let's see. We are also providing hand sanitizing resources for our staff, and it's also available all throughout the building for our visitors. So you will have hand sanitizing touchless dispensers that people and visitors can use frequently. So we're also looking at implementing acrylic divisors in our front desk area and the store area. We're also rethinking how the museum store is going to be operating, since definitely access will be very much limited. We're also, in terms of inside the galleries, we're collaborating with other museums in the LA County area. And the current standard that's being used, it's 10 square meters, which is approximately 107.6 square feet per person or per household that's visiting an indoor space. Again, this is a measurement that's being referenced today. As we know, as we keep learning from more of the COVID-19 spread tendencies, this may change. So please be aware. I'm giving this out as a reference, not as a hard truth. So it's one of those things that will keep evolving as we learn more and move more. So that's determining for us how many people inside one gallery we can allow, and then looking at the households that we're looking at a maximum of 5 to 6 people per household. So that would be a group. So we're looking at that as well as one of our criteria. Another criteria that we're looking at is how we're going to be allowing people in. So the moment that we're allowed to open up to the public, we will do members only the first 2 weeks to identify a pattern, to see how people are reacting, and see the tendencies that they have as we move forward with how comfortable people are going to other places, indoor spaces. So those tendencies will give us some some knowledge of how do we need to adapt to make our visitors feel safe and comfortable visiting our spaces. So after the first 2 weeks, which will be members only, then we will go into an online ticketed system, allowing also for some walk-ins to come into the building. So as we determine tendencies from those first 2 weeks, then we'll also determine how the walk-ins will collaborate. We're also looking at our free Sundays, which is our most popular day, but it's also our busiest day. So what will that look like in a situation where we have to limit how many people come in? So I think that's where MOLA is right now. And it's a learning experience, I think, for all of us in terms of how do we make sure that we ensure the safety of the staff and the visitors as well. And I think that's my time. Anything else that I haven't looked at the chat, so.
No, there's no questions right now, but I just want to thank you. Some of the things that you're mentioning, it's all of the things that that's swimming around in all of our heads. And I mean, from the floors and not being able to put stickers on them, those are all the little things that we have to work through when we're reopening and walking through the experience. And then all the way to, you know, it's not a guideline, but it's how people are feeling about being together indoors. And I think we're all, because we're serving the community, working to see what people are comfortable with. We can open, but we need to open to people who are comfortable with being in those spaces again, which is also another important indicator that we don't have any data on right now. And so I just want to thank you for that and sharing. And if anyone does have questions, feel free to follow up with TNP or put something in the chat for any of our presenters. We hope to do this again and share more perspectives, but it's wonderful to gather, especially when things are so uncertain, and to hear how other people are thinking through things, because we're all thinking through 1,000 things at one time, and it helps us all to really identify those things that we may have forgotten to think about. And if there's any final words Griselda or any of our panelists want to share, I'll open that up now. No final words. I can keep talking. Well, I just want to thank you all again. I really appreciate all of your time today. I want to thank everyone. We had up to, I believe, 80 participants here today, and you know, there's still about 60 that have hung on to the end, and it's important information. We'll share this out with all of you, and also any links or any relevant resources, but please let us know how we can continue to be a resource. I know the Arts Council feels the same way, and we are here to support the work that you are all doing. So thank you again for all of that work, and we hope you all have a safe rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Have a great day. Bye.